Hey there, folks. Thanks for tuning in to S News. If you want to stay up to date with stories like this one and catch all our future videos, go ahead and follow us. It really helps us out if you subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. Let us know what you think or what you want to see next. Your support means a lot, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and join the conversation in the comments. All right, let's get started. It started with a roar over the Baltic Sea. No warning, no room for error, just a Russian fighter jet racing toward two American bombers, seconds away from disaster. The world didn't flinch, but something had changed. What happened next wasn't just a close call. It was a quiet signal that echoed all the way to Washington. And this was only the beginning. On May 23, 2023, tensions flared over the Baltic Sea. Two Russian Su-27 fighter jets took off from Kaliningrad and quickly headed straight for two American B-1B Lancer bombers. Within minutes, the Su-27s closed the distance and flew so dangerously close that NATO radars triggered alarms. Official flight data confirmed that the Russian jets came within a few hundred feet of the American aircraft. Footage later verified by defense analysts showed a gap of less than 300 feet between the warplanes. An incredibly risky distance at those speeds. For many observers, this wasn't just a routine intercept, it was a steel-wrapped warning happening just outside NATO territory. Military experts quickly called it a reckless maneuver. The US Air Force didn't respond with force, but the message was clear. Russia was testing limits. Some viewed it as Moscow showing off its air power, hoping to provoke a reaction or distract from the war in Ukraine. But the real question remained, was this part of a bold strategy or just a big miscalculation? What made the incident especially alarming wasn't just the speed and closeness, but the surprise. The Su-27s appeared on radar only seconds before closing in, leaving the US crew almost no time to react. It was a textbook show of Russian readiness and desperation. Russia wanted to flex its muscles, but in doing so, it raised fears of an accidental war. In Washington, the Pentagon labeled the intercept unsafe and unprofessional. NATO leaders echoed the concern, warning that future incidents could spiral into a major crisis. As tensions in Eastern Europe continued to rise, the skies over the Baltic became a silent battleground, where even the smallest mistake could lead to chaos. No shots were fired, but the psychological impact was massive. The US didn't respond with missiles, it responded with coordination. Intelligence sharing among NATO allies increased and quiet aerial patrols doubled in the following weeks. If Russia had hoped to intimidate, it instead attracted more attention and troops to the region. This wasn't just a one-off threat, it was the start of a new pattern that would soon repeat itself in even colder and more dangerous skies. Shortly after the Baltic incident, Russia released official footage showing a Su-27 approaching a B-1B, with a voice in the cockpit saying, "They're violating our borders." The video was meant to showcase strength, but it also revealed just how close they came to disaster. On the US side, the Pentagon responded quickly. In a press conference, officials called the maneuver unprofessional and unsafe. They emphasized that the B-1Bs were flying in international airspace along a planned legal route. Analysts warned that close passes like this leave almost no margin for error. A split-second misjudgment from wind, pressure changes or delayed reactions could cause a deadly crash. CNN even featured a retired Air Force general who explained that these kinds of encounters, though brief, are among the riskiest situations pilots can face outside of combat. The video went viral worldwide, highlighting just how real the danger was. Viewers saw the Su-27 veer just a few dozen meters from the bomber's wing, not just a warning, but a nerve test between two global powers. At the time, American public opinion leaned strongly toward caution. People didn't want escalation, but they also didn't want to appear weak. This pushed US policymakers to reconsider how much they could tolerate without setting dangerous precedents. NATO leaders called on Russia to follow international air safety rules and avoid unnecessary intimidation. But the US didn't back down. Instead of reacting with force, it shifted tactics. The B-1Bs were ordered to stay on course. No retreat. It was a subtle but firm message. America would not be forced out of the skies. That same week, NATO air patrols across the region ramped up. Sweden and Finland, new NATO partners, joined American and British planes in joint exercises. What started as a close call had now grown into a broader air defence alert across the region. Russia's cockpit video tried to portray itself as the border protector, but it raised more red flags among Western allies. The line between deterrence and provocation had been crossed. Thanks for sticking with us through this story. If you want to see more coverage like this, don't forget to follow S News, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next one. Tensions reached a new high when a Russian Su-27 again flew dangerously close to a B-1B. But instead of panicking, the American pilot stayed calm and made a bold move. With precise coordination, the two bombers suddenly banked sharply east, catching the Russian pilot off guard and forcing him to adjust quickly. This wasn't just a dodge, it was a message. The United States wasn't looking for a fight, but it wouldn't be bullied. Inside the cockpit, one American crew member was reportedly heard saying, "They just made a huge mistake. Now let's show them how we fly." That line, while not officially confirmed, spread quickly through military forums and news circles, capturing the spirit of the moment, calm under pressure, backed by strength. The move drew strong reactions from defense analysts and major US networks like CNN and Fox. Military expert Lieutenant Colonel John Barrett told CNN, "This kind of Russian behavior isn't just risky, it's reckless. One wrong move and both sides could be burying pilots." His comments reflected rising concerns in the Pentagon about a fatal incident sparking a broader conflict. Meanwhile, US Strategic Command confirmed that the B-1Bs returned safely to their base in the United Kingdom, having completed their patrol without delay. It wasn't just a safe return, it was a demonstration of discipline and resolve. The US Bomber Task Force missions aren't random. Each flight is carefully planned to remind adversaries that the United States can reach any corner of the world whenever it chooses. These bombers don't carry nukes, but they carry a message. American air power is always present, always ready, and won't back down when challenged. Russian state media, however, tried to spin the story. Broadcasters claimed the B-1Bs backed off out of fear and painted the intercept as a Russian victory. But the global audience wasn't convinced. Satellite data and flight tracking showed that the US bombers completed their patrol routes before returning. There was no retreat, just a course adjustment to finish the mission and defuse a tense moment. Though no damage occurred, the incident rippled through the military world. The phrase "huge mistake" became symbolic, used by journalists and social media users alike to mock Russia's action. This wasn't just about two jets in the sky, it was about pride, strategy and control in a fragile geopolitical arena. As international observers examined the encounter, one thing became clear. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a series of dangerous standoffs over the Baltic and Arctic. Not long after the Baltic episode, tensions reignited in the icy skies up north. In March 2024, two American B-1B bombers were flying a routine mission north of Norway when Russian MiG-31s suddenly intercepted them. What made this different wasn't just the location, it was the speed and intensity of the approach. One MiG came within 100 feet of a B-1B's left wing. One wrong move, and it could have ended in disaster. American officials again called the intercept unprofessional and unsafe, echoing the same language used after the Baltic incident. The Barents Sea region holds major strategic value. It's close to Russia's Northern Fleet and the Arctic Gateway. For Russia, it's a red line. For NATO, it's a vital patrol corridor. The intercept happened just days before a NATO exercise in the region involving Norway, the United Kingdom and the United States, raising serious concerns in both Washington and Brussels. Was it another warning or something more coordinated? Unlike last time, the US didn't just issue a statement. Hours later, the Pentagon confirmed 4 more bombers would join the task force in Europe. A clear message: intimidation won't work. Analysts warned that flying so close at such speeds, especially with a heavy subsonic bomber like the B-1B, is extremely dangerous. If the MiG got caught in wake turbulence, both planes could have crashed. The incident sparked another wave of debate inside NATO. Some experts believed Russia was testing NATO's reaction time and engagement rules. Others saw it as a domestic show of strength. Russian state media again released dramatic footage with patriotic music, but outside Russia the message was clear: one more close pass could lead to real conflict. Despite the drama, the US bombers completed their mission and landed safely at RAF Fairford in the United Kingdom. It wasn't just a successful operation, it was a symbolic win. Once again, Russia's attempt to intimidate only strengthened NATO's resolve. From Moscow's point of view, these close intercepts weren't meant to start a war. Russian officials described their pilots' actions as defensive. They claimed the goal was simply to protect national airspace and discourage foreign bombers from flying near their borders. But, to outside observers, the message was confusing and the timing raised some serious questions. According to Russian military doctrine, fast intercepts are a form of active deterrence meant to show they won't tolerate perceived threats. That's why Su-27s and MiG-31s are often ordered to fly just a few hundred feet from NATO bombers. The goal isn't engagement, it's to remind rivals they're being watched, but in practice this tactic often backfires. Take the March 2024 Baltic Sea incident. Russia called it a safe escort, but video showed a MiG flying dangerously close to a B-1B. The United States called it escalation and recklessness. The result? NATO increased patrols and regional exercises. Instead of pushing NATO away, Russia's bold approach gave the alliance more reasons to boost its presence in Northern Europe. Even within Russia, not everyone agreed with the timing of these intercepts. Some retired officers warned that such close passes could trigger unintended reactions. Military analyst Pavel Felgenhauer told Novaya Gazeta, "Pushing hard near NATO's borders could start the very conflict we want to avoid." His concern reflects a growing fear that tactical moves without alignment with broader strategy can actually increase tensions, not reduce them. There's also the issue of effectiveness. Despite several aggressive intercepts in 2023 and 2024, NATO bombers haven't changed course. In fact, B-1Bs are flying more missions in support of the bomber task force in Europe. In other words, Russian air threats haven't translated into strategic success. If the goal was to stop Western flights, the tactic failed. Russian state media often tries to spin these encounters as victories, airing close intercept footage with dramatic music and bold commentary. While viewers inside Russia see their air force acting boldly, the real balance of power remains unchanged. It creates a false sense of strength, while risking a real confrontation. The core issue? Symbolic gestures are replacing strategic logic. Flying dangerously close might look impressive on camera, but it changes nothing on the ground. Worse, it invites blowback. NATO hasn't just boosted its air presence, it's stepped up at sea too. Warships from the United States, United Kingdom and Norway have been conducting patrols and training exercises in the Baltic Sea. These missions are a clear sign. The Arctic and Baltic aren't open playgrounds for unchecked Russian activity. They're part of a larger strategy to keep freedom of movement and surveillance in contested waters, areas that have become crucial as global power dynamics shift. Military experts are now calling the situation a grey zone confrontation. It means both sides are applying pressure, but without firing a single shot. There's no open war, but there's no peace either. Russia is using close flybys and aggressive air patrols to test NATO's readiness. In return, NATO is holding large-scale exercises, often right in view of Russian radar. These moves are meant to send messages, not missiles, but the line between a message and a miscalculation is razor-thin. And that's where the real danger lies. As both sides increase their presence, the risk of an accidental collision, or a false alarm, grows. Military analysts from RAND and IISS warn that one wrong move, one delayed radio call, one nervous pilot, or one wrong turn could turn a close encounter into an international crisis. Between 2023 and 2024 alone, NATO recorded at least 55 close-call incidents involving Russian planes and Western bombers, most happening at speeds over Mach 1. NATO insists these deployments are defensive and routine, but the sheer number and frequency suggest otherwise. This silent battlefield is already active. Power is measured by presence and determination, not just firepower. And with each new confrontation, the strategic temperature keeps rising. The next phase may not be about who has more weapons, but about who avoids the next mistake. So we ask, is Russia's pattern of close intercepts pushing us into a new Cold War? Or is this just high-stakes psychological warfare? Across the Baltic Sea and the Arctic skies, a dangerous pattern is repeating. Russian fighter jets fly dangerously close to American bombers. The United States answers by sending more aircraft, holding more drills and, well, increasing its presence near Russia's borders. These aren't accidents. This is a clear escalation pattern, and it could spiral into real conflict if things go wrong. Back in May 2023, the world watched as Russian Su-27 jets flew within just 300 feet of American B-1B Lancer bombers. Months later, in March 2024, two Russian MiG-31s repeated the same high-risk move over the Barents Sea. Russia called them safe escorts, but US officials and military experts strongly disagreed, warning that such aggressive behavior raises the risk of miscalculation and potential confrontation. Every time something like this happens, the United States doesn't respond with force, but with more presence. After the Baltic and Barents encounters, America ramped up bomber deployments in Europe and began joint military drills with Sweden, Finland and other NATO allies. These actions demonstrate strength, but also they raise tensions. Every move from one side is met with a bigger response from the other, making it harder to cool things down. See, experts now warn that this back and forth could get out of control. Military aircraft fly fast, often in poor weather and under heavy pressure. One wrong turn, one bad radio signal, or one misread radar screen is all it takes for a fatal accident. And today, a crash like that could be seen as an act of war. Unlike the Cold War of the 20th century, where tensions simmered behind closed doors, today's confrontations play out live. Captured on video, spread instantly across social media and picked up by the news within minutes, that forces governments to react faster than they may want to. The chance for quiet diplomacy disappears when headlines scream Russia clashes with us before diplomats even get on the phone. Meanwhile, communication lines between the two militaries are weaker than ever. The direct hotlines that once helped avoid misunderstandings are either down or unreliable. That silence makes every new move riskier, because each side is left guessing the other's intentions. Which is why many now ask, is this just a show of force? Or are we actually on the brink of something real? Because one day, if another Russian jet gets too close and an American pilot reacts just a bit too fast, the headline may not be about a near miss, but about the start of something none of us can control. From the Baltic to the frozen north, Russia's risky close encounters with US bombers were meant to intimidate, but instead they've exposed the dangers and triggered stronger responses from NATO. Every maneuver pushed the envelope, and each one proved how quickly a warning can turn into war. The skies remain tense. One wrong move could change the course of history. So the question now is this just posturing, or the start of something much bigger?